The qk65, also known as the qk65, ruined keyboards for the entire hobby. Let me explain. Some may credit me as the evil that brought the OwlLab Jelly Epoch hype into this world. No one really did, but there was one time where someone blamed my stands and my army for making it really hard to buy a Jelly Epoch. But basically no one else did, it's just one angry guy. So I'm gonna say it anyway, it was a very important milestone in our hobby. We had the AI03 gasket keyboards in the Polaris and the Vega, but the market was still hungry for a deeper thought. The Jelly Epoch brought that cream and that marble, and it started off a chain reaction of PE foam in every single keyboard thereafter. Nothing was ever the same. The infection of the PE foam permeated every crevice of the hobby, that's what she said. But it was still expensive. It was in stock, kind of, but at $429, it was out of reach for many. After the Jelly Epoch became popular, people figured out that the main driving force for that specific marbly sound was the layer of PE foam at the top of the PCB. Then people started modding their own keyboards by putting it in everything. Then came the QWERTY keys with the qk65. First of its name, unheard of value. And you know what else is a great value? HelloFresh meals. HelloFresh is sponsoring this video. I know it's bulking season right now and there's a lot of temptation with hanging out with friends and family and having a good time and just kind of eating good, you know? Honestly, think cooking is pretty fun because as soon as you're done, you get to enjoy what you make. Each meal is packaged in its own bag, so I can just grab it and get started cooking right away. Over time, I've gotten pretty good at it so that it doesn't take that long at all. And honestly, if I wanted to go get takeout, probably take 30 minutes as well. I'd have to call in, drive there, pick it up, bring it back. So why not just cook at home and at least I know what's going in my food and it's a little bit healthier. The calories is actually 20% lower, and compared to my own cooking, when I go to the grocery store, I only get the bare minimum, so I don't have the seasonings and ingredients that makes food taste way better. So, and if you're ever worried about getting bored of the meals, there's 35 different recipes to pick from. They give you just the right amount of ingredients, so there's never any waste. The meals taste good, are less calories, so you can get started on your New Year's resolutions early, become a happier, healthier you in the next year. So what are you waiting for? Go to HelloFresh.com today and go use code ANDYN18 at checkout. You get 18 free meals and free shipping. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. QWERTY Keys is a sister company of OwlLab, and the qk65 was a gasket mount keyboard with a fancy colored back. You can see right here. Look at that. Beautiful. Comes with silicone, PE foam, PCB foam, all the fixings to basically make a 65% version of the Jelly Epoch at $200 shipped. $100 for the keyboard, $20 for the plate, $40 for the PCB, and $40 for shipping. It came with the cable too, but I lost that. Honestly, I also lost the PE foam and the PCB foam, so this right here is actually built with Alpacas and just a silicone. I always misplace the PE foam and PCB foam because they suck. I personally do not like using them because of what it does to the sound. Typically PE foam, although it's popular, makes everything have that marbly sound, kind of bringing in the high frequencies and bringing up the low frequencies and bring them all to the middle, and it sounds very similar. PCB foam also does that and kind of makes everything sound gaskety, and that's just not my favorite because I like to really discern the differences in what a switch sounds like depending on the plate, the mounting style, and the keyboard case design. But if you just want good sound, PE foam and PCB foam is going to get you there faster without having to experiment as much. How did this keyboard ruin the hobby? Well, at this price, it beats out the Vega and gives everyone access to that Jelly Epoch sound that became so popular internationally. Astute enthusiasts deduced that the sound of the Jelly Epoch came from the layer of PE foam on top of the PCB. This brought a deep sound to any configuration, any board, without having to get a specific mounting style or switch. This led to people grabbing random pieces of foam and packing material in their houses and putting it into every keyboard they could. Some succeeded, some damaged their keyboard, but almost everyone tried at least once. Prior to this, the Vega was basically the gold standard of good value out of a nice keyboard. It wasn't too expensive, it wasn't a small quantity, you could actually buy it, and honestly most people were happy with it. It had the quality, it had a heavy weight, and 8out3 is a well-respected designer. But that board took a while for the GB to fulfill because it was basically unlimited. Compared to the Vega, I think the sound of the QK board appeals to more people. The accessibility, quantity, fast group buy / pre-order, and multiple drops sets the qk65 apart. I've talked about the war on affordable keyboards. We had Owllab and Wutre making more premium boards, and then they made their budget sister companies named Keys for Owllab and Mellatrix for Wutre. Prior to this back and forth between these behemoths, it was primarily small designers, maybe running 1 at most 2 keyboards a year, and if one was successful, they maybe do a second run. But at quantities of maybe 20, 30, 40, at most maybe 100, there wasn't a lot of keyboards coming to the market, and the hobby was growing much faster. And there was like a perfect storm in 2020 and 2021 where everything was priced above what it cost. That Vega that was $400, maybe 500, was being sold near 1,000 at one point. That's crazy, right? Tofus were getting sold for a lot. Even Savage 65s, which is probably the ugliest of the keyboards available. I mean, it's brutalist architecture, but I personally don't like it. Even that one was being flipped because everyone wanted a keyboard, and the TGRs and the unicorns and all that, no one could touch. So the more accessible ones are even being marked up. With these larger behemoths being able to pump out more units and make multiple drops in 1 year, more people can get keyboards, more people can get to the hobby, they can start experimenting, they can start learning, they can start trying new things, they can start getting new plates, using different switches, trying out different stabilizers, trying out different mods. So it's better for the hobby, it's healthier for the hobby. But even then, the qk65 was being flipped above retail for a while. A question you might have might be, why is this so much cheaper than the Vega? They're both 65% keyboards, they're both aluminum. What gives? So the board is technically only $160, and the main thing is, instead of having a stainless steel weight like the Vega, this just has an aluminum bottom. It's PVD coated, so it looks cool, but it's not as hefty as the Vega. They also use a cast aluminum bottom, and if you think about it, the Bakaneko is also cast aluminum rather than CNC'd, so it's a little bit cheaper. But in terms of the final product, in terms of sound and feel, I don't think any shortcuts were taken there. It's just the actual quality of the case itself is a little bit lower. I don't think most people are going to care because they were putting tape and P-foam into like Amazon tray mounts, so this is obviously an upgrade. So all in all, this sounds good, right? Well, the ruining the hobby might be just an exaggeration. This keyboard is now the standard for everything. Every keyboard that comes out is going to be compared against it. The number of people that like the qk65 sound and package and price outnumbers everybody else. Why would I buy that? The qk65 sounds better. I'd rather get a qk65. Imagine buying this when the qk65 exists. With the popularity of boards like the qk65, the Jelly Epoch, and the other boards that Mellatrix are releasing, the trend is moving towards P-foam, PCB foam, and gaskets. That's just what's going to be available for the large quantity buys. If you want like a top mount or some kind of special isolation mount, that's not going to hit the mainstream, and I don't think vendors are going to be willing to invest into a package like that. You saw this with the Link 65. That was a cooler, revolutionary design in that the PCB had so much flex cuts, but I was also guilty of saying, why buy that when the qk65 exists? With the popularity of this kind of single type of keyboard, I'm afraid it may stifle the ingenuity and creativity of designers. But at the end of the day, it's a great keyboard and it hits a specific market. It's a good sound, but still, in my opinion, pretty one-dimensional. It looks good, but it doesn't quite have a refined look. As you can tell, like I have a fingerprint here, and if you take off these rubber feet, it looks okay. I personally wouldn't own one of these because I don't like the sound out of it, and even though it has silicone in the bottom, I can hear the hollowness because the cast aluminum. Probably needs a little bit of force break or tape mod or something to kind of boost it up. I still got some elitist tendencies in me, so I'd rather use my Kohaku. At this point, I'm honestly the type of person that sticks their ear up against a keyboard sometimes to see what sounds different. But it's really hard to contest the value. At $200, it's not the bottom of the barrel budget keyboard, but it's still a full aluminum keyboard with a PVD finish to make it sparkle. It's not a cheaper mounting style like a tray mount or a sandwich mount acrylic board, and it provides a decent amount of flex. It's priced very affordably and has found its way in a lot of people's homes. Do I hate the keyboard? Absolutely not. Did it actually ruin the hobby? No, I just really wanted you to click this video. It's just an interesting turning point in the hobby because I see much less low quantity group buys these days, and there are more rolling sales like the qk65. And Keys is pumping out more and more keyboards in the same market. See the qk65 and probably the TKL that they're gonna do sometime. Unfortunately, I do think a lot of them sound very similar, but at least they're adding more quantity to satisfy the demand of the growing hobby. I definitely wish I had a qk65 around when I started. Maybe I would have spent less money on all these other expensive rectangles. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next one. Peace.